The rain and hail pounded relentlessly on the roof of my old sedan. It never rained like this in Dallas, not so hard, not so constant. The storm clouds seemed to stretch for miles, an oppressive blanket as I navigated down Dolphin Road. The clock on my dashboard read 9:07 p.m., yet it felt far later. Sundown was typically around 9:20 p.m., but tonight, even without the rain, the world would still be pitch black. The visibility was reduced to a mere 7 feet ahead of me, the rain ensuring I couldn't see anything else. Dolphin Road, a lonely back road about 30 minutes from downtown, wound through the desolate countryside. No other cars were visible, only the occasional flash of distant lightning followed by the rumble of thunder. I had been traveling from a business meeting in Plano to my apartment downtown, but a creeping realization dawned on me. I might have to stop for the night. But I was so close. Half an hour more. Screw it, I thought, I'll keep going. The rain seemed to mock my resolve, pouring even harder, hail beginning to tap insistently against the car. The idea of stopping for the night grew stronger in my mind. Desperately, I pulled out my Nokia to check the GPS. The screen displayed a mocking red text box, no service. Great, I thought. Did I really expect full bars in a raging storm in the middle of nowhere? Frustrated, I threw the phone onto the floorboard of the passenger seat and kept driving, hoping for a stroke of luck. Soon enough, I saw a dimly lit motel ahead. It was small, likely shabby inside, but it was salvation. The neon sign buzzed, its letters obscured by the rain. I drove into the first opening, parked, and grabbed my briefcase. Throwing my leather jacket over my head, I dashed inside. The motel's interior was unremarkable. A few chairs, a table, a couch, and a fireplace. The desk sat along the eastern wall, diagonal to the fireplace. There was no bellhop or concierge in sight. The sign behind the desk read, "Hours, 7:00 p.m." A bell sat on the desk. I rang it. The sharp sound echoed, but no one answered. A clock on the wall ticked silently, its hands frozen. The storm raged outside, adding an eerie ambiance to the dimly lit room. A single desk lamp was on, the overhead lights remaining dark. The fire in the fireplace crackled, its warmth the only comfort. Someone must be here. I rang the bell again, still no answer. I called out, "Hello, is anyone home?" Silence. I sat in the chair next to the desk, resting my head on my arm, the rain's rhythm almost lulling me to sleep. I had nearly dozed off when a voice startled me awake. "Oh, hello," it said. I jolted upright, nearly falling out of my seat. Regaining my balance, I stood and looked around. "Oh dear, I apologize. I didn't mean to frighten you," the voice continued. At first, it sounded like it came from behind me, then from my side. I turned to my left and saw him. In the mirror's reflection was another man. Spinning around faster than the lightning outside, I saw him, a man in an all-red suit. Bright scarlet from head to toe, red tie, red pants, red jacket, red shirt. The sight of him was unnerving, surreal, unlike anything I'd ever seen. His hair was jet black, combed meticulously to the side, framing a charming smile that seemed almost predatory. But I was too consumed by fear to appreciate any attractiveness. His presence reminded me of Norman Bates, but with a chilling twist. The man in the red suit loomed behind me, his eyes gleaming with a sinister warmth. "Oh, hi, I'm Andrew Craig," I stammered, fatigue evident in my voice, yet adrenaline kept me alert. "Well, hello. I'm Christopher Owens," he replied smoothly, his voice dripping with a calm that only made me more uneasy. He pointed to the name tag on his scarlet suit. "I own this motel." He extended his hand, and I shook it reluctantly, his grip cold and firm. "Sorry if I kept you waiting. I dozed off, and the bellboy's gone home. We don't get many visitors here." Classic psycho vibes. I tried to shake off the unease. "It's fine. I'm just glad I found you before something happened. You really saved me. Do you have any vacancies?" "Of course," he said, his sincerity almost too perfect. "I'll give you the room right next to the office so you don't have to walk far." "Thank you so much. How much will that be?" "Not too much," he replied, his smile never wavering. I dug out my wallet, counting my cash $49 exactly. Considering the circumstances, I asked, "Will $10 be enough for the night?" He nodded, smiling. "That will do just fine. Are you sure? I can give you more." He shook his head. "No need, I'm happy to help." I handed him 2 fives, which he pocketed without even looking. He walked over to a large board with at least 25 key rings, took one, and tossed it to me. I caught it with a sense of odd pride. "Thank you again," I said, heading out with my jacket over my head. The hail pelted me as I ran to my room, the first red door next to the main building. The room was small but surprisingly quaint. I hung my jacket on the coat rack to the left and looked around. The walls were a calming light blue, contrasting with the tan carpet. There was a single bed with sky blue duvet covers, a light brown couch against the diagonal wall, and a small bathroom stocked with essentials. A mini fridge, dresser, and TV completed the setup. I tossed my briefcase onto the couch, then collapsed onto the bed, savoring the momentary relief. I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. Noting the clock read 10:43 p.m., I watched the last hour of a movie, then turned off the TV, grabbed my briefcase, and sat at the desk. My job at a large car manufacturing company required endless paperwork. The stack I'd brought with me was smaller than usual, but still daunting. I pulled out a pen and began reviewing the documents, the process methodical and mind-numbing. An hour later, I finished, feeling a mix of relief and boredom. I turned the TV back on, only to be greeted by static and the hiss of white noise. The storm outside raged on, the hail striking the concrete with a relentless machine gun rhythm. The eerie atmosphere of the motel seeped into my bones, and as I glanced out the window, the rain continued its unceasing downpour, each drop a reminder of the isolation and the unsettling presence of the man in the red suit. I glanced at the main building and noticed the lights were off. Owen must have gone home. I hoped he made it back safely. Panic started to creep in as I realized I hadn't checked my phone. I reached into my pocket and found only 3 quarters. My other pocket was empty. A flash of rage and desperation crossed my mind as I remembered throwing my phone onto the floorboards of my car. It was now across the parking lot, which seemed as dangerous as a minefield. I checked the nightstand and picked up the hotel phone. Pressing the receiver to my ear, I was greeted by silence. The line was dead. My fear began to mount. Not knowing what else to do, I decided to take a shower. But before reaching the bathroom, I recalled the risk of electrocution during a lightning storm. The thought of getting shocked paralyzed me. Feeling restless, I searched for something to occupy my mind. The TV yielded no DVDs. Boredom gnawed at me. I picked up a book from the shelf, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I'd read it in high school. Scanning the other titles, I realized I had read them all. Frustrated, I jumped back into bed, hoping for some rest. The moment I hit the sheets, the lights flickered. This continued for several minutes, 3 times a minute. Fear gripped me. Here I was, in a strange hotel, with an eerie manager, a static-filled TV, and a raging storm outside. The flickering lights made the situation even more unnerving. I walked slowly to the light switch and flipped it off and on again. The flickering stopped, offering me a small, yet significant relief. But 3 minutes later, the flickering resumed, this time more consistently. I sighed in resignation. At least there was some light. I twisted the lamp knob on the nightstand. The lamp flickered and then went out. Agitated, I sat on the couch, feeling exhaustion pull at me. Suddenly, the lights went out and stayed out. A sudden urge compelled me to open my eyes. They landed immediately on the corner of the room, where a pair of glowing red eyes stared back at me. I froze, unable to move. The eyes seemed to burn through the darkness. Despite the storm outside, I could almost hear breathing. I couldn't tell if it was my own or something else's. The room became icy cold as the lights dimmed and the red eyes appeared. I exhaled deeply, and I could see my breath, a stark reminder of how cold it had become. My eyes remained locked on those glowing orbs, now more terrifyingly alive than ever. The lights flickered back on, and the eyes vanished instantly. I still couldn't move, paralyzed by the encounter. Deciding I had to escape, I began to count to 10. With each number, I took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. My breath quickened with each count. 4, 5, 6. My heartbeat thundered in my chest, making it hard to stay still. 7, 8. The fear was almost unbearable. 9. I steeled myself. 10. I bolted for the door, running like I had never run before. I reached the door in 2 frantic seconds and twisted the lock. I grabbed the handle and twisted it as hard as I could. It didn't budge. I was trapped. Groaning in frustration, the lights went out again. A cold, slow breath brushed the back of my neck. I turned around slowly, my gaze fixed on the floor. When I had turned completely, I raised my head ever so slowly until I met those red eyes just 6 inches from my face. The room was pitch black, and the eyes were the only thing visible solid red, devoid of pupils, glowing with an infernal scarlet hue. The cold breath was calm and measured, sending chills down my spine. A minute later, the lights flickered back on. My hands were wide open and frozen in place. The eyes had vanished again. My heart pounded so hard, I thought I might have a heart attack or faint, but adrenaline kept me on my feet. Somehow, I managed to walk to the couch and sit down without blinking. The lights went out again, and I frantically scanned the room. The red eyes were gone, but I knew they could be anywhere hiding. The fear was almost unbearable. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I had seen. Was it some sort of invisible creature that only allowed its eyes to be seen? Monsters don't exist, I told myself, trying to be rational. Suddenly, a chilling realization struck me. I dropped to my knees and crawled under the bed, lifting the bed skirt. The red eyes glared back at me, more intense than ever. I shot backward, hitting the dresser hard. Standing up, I glanced at the headboard and saw the mirror reflecting those terrible eyes behind me. I spun around just as the lights flickered back on. That's it, I thought. Either I'm crazy, or this room is evil. I was leaning towards the latter. This room was suffocating me, driving me mad. Without thinking, I grabbed the small wooden chair from the desk and swung it at the window like a baseball bat. The chair bounced off the window without even a scratch. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Desperation clawed at me. I kicked the glass with all my might, but it did nothing. The window was unbreakable. The door was locked tight. This room was my prison. I fell into a deep despair, the lights mocking me as they flickered. Laughing and crying, I sat on the couch, racking my brain for a way to escape. I knew in my heart that nothing would work. In a fit of desperation, I glanced up at the ceiling and saw an air vent. It was a slim chance, but it might be a way out. I grabbed a small letter opener from my briefcase and dragged the chair under the vent. Standing on it, I began to unscrew the metal covering. There were only 4 screws, and I worked quickly. I looked up into the air vent. It wasn't very high, just about 2 feet above me. The vent was narrow, maybe 2.5 feet long and 1.5 feet wide, but I could squeeze through with little difficulty. Bending my knees slightly, I jumped, grabbing the ledge and pulling myself up and through the hole. Lying on my stomach, I began to crawl. The fan ahead of me offered little resistance as I pushed past it, my hopes rising with every inch. There were 2 turning points beyond the fan, and I chose the right one, believing it would lead me to the main building, the check-in, check-out area. Crawling towards it, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. When I was only a few feet away, I looked ahead and saw a decaying corpse lying on its back, clad in a red suit. Owens, I thought, my face twisting in horror. Panic surged through me as I turned and crawled the other way as fast as I could. When I reached to drop into a pitch-black room, red eyes glared up at me. I jumped in the confined space, feeling something cold and bony grip my leg. Looking back, I saw the corpse had moved, its rotting hand clamped around my ankle, glowing red eyes glaring into mine. I screamed, shaking my leg vigorously, and crawled forward, dropping into the room with the red eyes. I realized with a sickening certainty that they belonged to Owens. As I fell, I barely missed a chair in the center of the room, landing hard on the floor. The lights flickered on, revealing my briefcase resting on the table. "No!" I screamed, standing up and staring into the vent. It was empty. I walked over to the couch where I had cried for hours and collapsed, sobbing anew. Owens had been watching me the whole time. How had he died? When had he died? Had he been dead when I first met him? Was he a demon, with the red suit symbolizing his evil nature? So many questions, all unanswered. I decided to wash myself off, not caring if I got electrocuted. Somehow, I knew the room wouldn't let that happen. It was going to torture me forever, never allowing me the release of death. I walked into the bathroom and turned on the sink. Splashing cold water on my face, I continued until the water turned a dark red, like blood. I stared at it, feeling neither fear nor disgust, then turned it off and walked back into the room. I half expected to see a noose hanging above the chair, but there was nothing. The room was unchanged. I sat on the bed, waiting in silence for whatever horror the room would throw at me next. 15 minutes later, the handle on my door began to turn. It turned slowly, and the door creaked open, stopping when the handle touched the wall. The room wasn't going to let me go that easily. It was mocking me. The storm outside still raged, hail pounding against the windows. The door remained wide open for 5 minutes, and I began to wonder, was it really letting me go? Had it decided I'd suffered enough? Tentatively, I stood up and walked to the door. I reached out a hand, extending it past the doorway. My eyes widened in disbelief. It was letting me go. I pinched myself, feeling the sharp pain of reality. I was free. Grabbing my briefcase, I hurried out, leaving the door wide open behind me. Stepping into the rain and hail, I welcomed the cold sting. I walked over to my car, not caring about the icy pellets hitting my skin. I was free from that awful room and those dreadful red eyes. Sitting down in the driver's seat, I started the car, eager to escape. Just as the engine roared to life, the lights in the car flickered out. I glanced into the rearview mirror, my heart sinking as I saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring back at me from the darkness.